The time for defense organizations to harness the power of the cloud is now. Discover how you can leverage MilCloud 2.0 and DIOS to advance your mission at Part 3 of GDIT Emerge 2021. Tune in virtually on June 23rd to explore how cloud enables mission partners to modernize IT platforms and integrate new technologies anytime, anywhere. Hear from top leaders in government and industry to discover how DoD enterprise clouds, such as MilCloud 2.0 and DIOS, can drive speed of acquisition, collaboration, and choice. Register today at gdit.com/emerge.
Introducing touch-free payments from PayPal, a safe way for your customers to pay. Simply download the PayPal app and display your own unique QR code for your customers to scan. Whether you're a market seller,
I'll take 2 tomatoes and a cucumber,
poodle pamperer, piano tuner, or plumber. Signing up to accept touch-free payments for your business is easy. Touch-free QR code payments. Shop safe with PayPal.
And now, another edition of Tony Tolato on Sci-Fi Talk.
Hey, this is Katie Sackhoff.
This is Who You Are. You're on Farscape, and you're listening to Sci-Fi Talk.
Co-creators of
Gotcha. You did it too.
I was like, and what am I promoting?
See, you did it too.
All right. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. This is Mike Doherty.
And this is Steve Fisher.
We're the co-creators of Brown Coats Redemption, and you're listening to Sci-Fi Talk.
Jump on the bandwagon. Everybody else has. Oh, God, another hayride.
Hi, I'm Tim Daly, the voice of Superman, right here on Sci-Fi Talk.
Hello, I'm Dr. Rodney McKay, David Hewlett, if you must.
Hi, this is Don Davis. I'm the composer of The Matrix Reloaded, and The Matrix Revolutions.
Hi, this is John Delancey.
Kind of act to things that aren't there.
Well, you know, sometimes you have that experience anyway with people that are there.
Thanks, God. I'm not that bad.
In part because of the hopeful nature of Gene's vision, but also because of its message of diversity and inclusion.
Hi, today on Sci-Fi Talk, we're going to talk about a new graphic novel just recently came out called Black Star. And we have Eric Anthony Glover, nice middle name there, Anthony, by the way. And also we have Ariel Jovellanos, who is the illustrator on Black Star. Welcome, both of you, to the podcast. After a dubious part, which the audience will know we're talking about, but we know. Anyway, interesting. So, Eric, tell us about where this story came from.
I had a nightmare. I woke up from a really terrifying dream in which I was an astronaut being chased by another astronaut in deep space. And I got up, went to my whiteboard, wrote down a couple of notes that were probably inscrutable to anyone else, and then went back to sleep. Maybe there's a story there. And I had also just come off of writing a screenplay that was just a massively scaled epic with car chases and explosions and superpowers and aliens and 9 different characters who were all vying for attention. And I was just exhausted by the whole thing. It had been too plotty, too much dialogue. And I really wanted to try a story that was much simpler and just had a kind of primal appeal. What if there was a woman being chased by another woman? The force of nature that she's fighting against is just the will of this person who is after her. And the only way she can escape it and get back home safely is to try to survive for 2 hours. This was a screenplay at first, and then it became a graphic novel that's out now. So terror, man, terror does a lot. It made me put pen to paper on this.
Okay, so Ariel, I guess the question first is, what's she going to look like? What is Harper North going to look like?
Well, I think when I was first sent I was actually sent the screenplay to read first, as well as sort of like a cheat sheet that had like character descriptions and like a basic overview of the plot, and that's normally what I will get when I'm first approached to do art for a graphic novel or something like that. Normally what I like to do is just to get a general idea, or just to get me and the writer on the same page, I do tend to ask like if who they would cast, or like what type they would cast in like a film version. And this was like 2 years ago, so I'm not sure if Eric remembers who he said, and I'll leave it like that a mystery, but I'll leave that a mystery, but basically he said a couple of actresses. I Google imaged them, and then I added them to like an image board of other various images, illustrations, just things to get the feel, like a feel for the character. And from there, I started doing the character design. I think the only thing that I was pretty certain about is that that the main character would be Black, and that I would also sort of take the initiative to make every character, or almost every character in the cast, a woman of color, just because I can.
That's
right. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Eric, tell us about Harper. What's she like?
Harper is pretty grumpy. She has a really fiery ambition to make sure that she gets her work done. Her work is extremely important to everyone on Earth because it could make leaps and bounds of research and fighting cancer possible. So she, at least at the beginning of the story, feels like that's the most important thing to keep in mind. And then she's put in a position where a little later on, she has to weigh the value of the research versus her own survival. And I think Harper is tempted to maybe put her own life above those of other people. And I'll leave it to readers to find out which one she ultimately chooses. But she's driven either way. She's driven either way. She's a person who doesn't really have time for anyone's what she would consider BS, because she thinks her priorities should be the priority. It doesn't make her a very pleasant person to be around.
Well, and then to add some spice to the story, the ship crash lands, and mostly everybody's dead except Harper. And of all people, a wilderness expert on a planet that, that's really unexplored. So a person who's used to survival and has survival training. So that makes a very formidable opponent. And her goal is to survive. So that makes it very interesting. And then you added something else to the mix. Hey, folks, the planet's going through a seasonal change too. So it's like, man, this is like the Murphy's Law planet here. Everything's going wrong at the same time.
Great way to put it.
Yeah. So what was that like to create her, and what is she like?
Samantha Parrish is grumpy for other reasons. She would really like to get paid for doing this extremely dangerous job. It's alluded to a bit more in the screenplay than in the book, but space travel is not a very polished or posh type of profession to have. When you're out there in space, it's extremely dangerous. I described the spaceship, the Panacea, to Ariel as like kind of this junker, just pretty much like a dirty pickup truck. It doesn't have a lot of money flowing into it, and space travel is probably on the decline. So doing this work is really hard and life-threatening.
Wow.
So Parrish, she knows her worth. She knows that finding this flower that could help out with the fight against cancer will get her paid, and that is her priority too. So in a way, she and North are very much alike. At the beginning of the story, they both want the flower, one for money, the other for research. But Parrish, I think, doesn't really see herself as doing anything for noble reasons. She's there for business purposes, and hopefully people will feel that she evolves a little bit by the time the story ends. But at the beginning, she's all about the cash.
So, Ariel, what about designing the Junker? What was that like?
For that, so Black Star was my first sci-fi, my first foray really into sci-fi in general. So I was taking a look at sort of my frames of reference for sci-fi, which is actually a lot of anime. So I was trying to think of various ships and set designs that I had seen before, and probably the closest, even though it isn't exactly like a one-to-one, I exactly reference this thing, but one of the ships that I do remember looking at was the ship in Cowboy Bebop.
Oh,
which
yeah.
Yeah, so that's like it's sort of like this Western inspired show where they're just kind of all like a bunch of bums living on this ship and kind of like doing freelance bounty hunting.
Yeah,
so
I'm
their
familiar with
ship isn't exactly like
No.
the most amazing thing. So I think in its unremarkableness, that is sort of what I tried to inject in the ship design here. It's not necessarily like the Jetsons. It looks more like it looks more like maybe a bit like current technology, but just set in the context of space.
Maybe more like in the Star Wars universe where Han Solo has to kick the panel or something for it to work.
Totally, yes,
You know,
yes.
it's a lived-in universe, and the ship reflects that. And that's one of the things that I was just talking to a screen director about it yesterday. At an Alien, where really the first universes where we saw, hey, people actually lived in it, because you can tell there's dents and stuff, and not everything works perfectly. And unfortunately, that's more human than a pristine universe, so I think. So you're designing another character, and she's also a woman, and she's, maybe in her eyes, she's not the antagonist. She just has different goals, or at least different reasons for the goals, as Eric mentioned. So how do you design her to keep her separate from the other characters so they don't look very similar?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do when I first saw the screenplay and I realized it was sort of this cat and mouse story, I immediately thought something like color coding the characters would set them apart or make a visual contrast very quickly, since the story does have like various complexities in the in like all the planning and trapping and strategy. It has those complexities, but overall the structure of it is rather simple. It's like a classic chase story. And so I think just making like the chaser and the chasee as readable as possible on the page helped to kind of create tension and sort of create visual motifs and cues so that the reader would learn to associate this color is North's and this color is Parrish's. And when you see Parrish's color, you know danger is coming or something is about to happen. So I think that was definitely one of the things that I was looking for. And I think while there are twists and turns in the story, you do start out from North's point of view, and from her point of view, Parrish isn't great. So I think like a classic, just going with the classic like red and the sharpness and sharpness of red as like a quote unquote antagonistic color was the jumping off point from there.
Cool. You built a world. I mean, this is world building. Eric, it was on paper first, and Ariel, you had to make it, jump out on the pages. So we'll start with Eric first, and then Ariel comment on building this new planet. And then the seasonal change too is a nice little wrinkle in there too. So how did you see this planet, Eric? And initially when you wrote it,
I saw it as a planet that I didn't think would be. I wanted to make sure that the planet wasn't too different from Earth because I didn't want to distract from the human drama between these two women. So I had a lot of familiar looking ecosystems that were on display. I have a desert and a snowy mountain range and a jungle and like a Lion King ashland. But I tried to make it strange that all these biomes were just very, very close together. That was the strangest thing that there is about the planet. Otherwise, I wanted it to feel unremarkable because the real danger, the real force of nature that poses a threat to North is Parrish herself. So, North trips over things. She doesn't trip over monsters that are chasing her or like quantum portals opening up in the middle of a river or something. I just wanted her to have really real grounded obstacle courses of, a wildfire or something to make her afraid. And then, hopefully it's more delicious that another human being is more dangerous than all of that combined when it comes to North's perspective. So all of that thought went into the design of the place. I think I mentioned to Ariel perhaps a couple of years ago that I had seen Interstellar, the Chris Nolan movie, a while back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all these planets that the main characters are traversing to try to see if there's salvation for humanity are really unremarkable, not very pretty places. They are pretty mundane. And I thought that was an interesting idea because I kept my focus on Matthew McConaughey's face. I ended up being really focused on all of his emotions and all of Anne Hathaway's emotions. I forget the characters' names at the moment, but the stars of the show weren't the environments. It was the people who were in conflict with one another. And that was my goal too.
So Ariel, that's a bit of a challenge to design something like that, to keep it unremarkable as possible.
It was a bit of a challenge, but I think mostly it sort of made my work a bit easier because like I said, I do I create like a mood board for each project before I work on it. And so since Eric had said, it is sort of like this unremarkable setting, what I started to look for then was references of just like landforms on Earth or interesting things that form on Earth that maybe had like a bit of a twist to them. So I did look up like white deserts. I looked up the rainforest, things like that. And wastelands. And I think in that way, I was able to inform the setting in a way that made it specific and yet still didn't seem too far off from anything that we've seen. Just because you don't want to get, just in my opinion, I feel like still with a setting there's still opportunity to tell a story there or like a specific story. And so I tried to make sure that I am using all of the storytelling capabilities that I can, even if like the thing that the story demands is trying to make a setting that is less obtrusive as possible. So, yeah.
There's more sci-fi talk, so stay tuned.
Some cars are comfy on the inside, but don't have power on the outside. And some cars have the horsepower, but none of the comfort. I used to think there weren't any cars that were the total package. But that all changed when I got my Honda SUV. It's rugged and sophisticated. And right now, Honda has deals on the entire Honda SUV lineup. CRV, HRV, Pilot, Passport, you name it. So if you're looking for a car that's the total package, the only place you'll find it is at your local Honda dealer. Hurry before they're all gone. Some cars are comfy on the inside but don't have power on the outside. And some cars have the horsepower but none of the comfort. I used to think there weren't any cars that were the total package. But that all changed when I got my Honda SUV. It's rugged and sophisticated, and right now, Honda has deals on the entire Honda SUV lineup. CRV, HRV, Pilot, Passport, you name it. So if you're looking for a car that's the total package, the only place you'll find it is at your local Honda dealer. Hurry before they're all gone.
You don't own me. Booking a room with 2 beds at a hotel isn't exactly your idea of a romantic getaway. Orbitz gets it. Visit orbitz.com/pride to find hotels that welcome you to travel as you are. Orbitz, travel as you are.
So just let me be myself to say and do whatever I please.
Back on Sci-Fi Talk, I'm Tony Tolato. For both of you, and we'll start with Eric and then Ariel, of course, working together. I mean, these days, you don't even have to see each other. You can just email each other stuff or go on Zoom like this. So how is that like for both of you to exchange ideas and to say, hey, this is what I want. Yeah, it's good, but I need this, that kind of thing?
We started off with a phone call, and then a lot of our work had to do with just emailing each other. I don't live a crazy distance from Ariel. We're both in New York State, but we don't live in the same city. Yeah. So even before the pandemic, I think that that distance probably would have been maintained. We each have our own lives. I had a full-time job. I meant to meet with Ariel sooner, but a whole pandemic happened. So hopefully she and I will be able to actually see each other in person now that things are, at least for us, hopefully on a downturn. But yeah, it was a pretty simple way of communicating. If I had anything I needed, I emailed her, and I don't even think I got her number until the book was pretty much done. It was emails and phone calls, and I think it worked out well for us.
Yeah, I think I would say that comics can tend to be like comics can tend to be like a step-by-step sort of situation. So in this case, it was just sort of like he submitted something, I got that thing, and then did something to it, and then he looked at that thing, gave me feedback, I did the next thing, he gave me feedback, et cetera, just sort of like a very quick back and forth. I would say that probably was the best way to do it. Would you say that, Eric?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that would have necessarily worked better. I didn't need you to, answer a text like in the next hour or something. It was always like, hey, like these are my thoughts. I attached sticky notes to her black and white versions of the panels, and she read them, and then we moved forward. It worked for me.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's great. So Eric, you were. I have to read this because it's a pretty big mouthful. You were the 2016 Final Draft Big Break Fellow. Say that 5 times. But so screenwriting is really where you really want to make an impact. So this was a screenplay. So I guess for a comic, you got to trim the dialogue a little bit. So what was it like working in this medium as opposed to writing a screenplay?
Tony, that is a super fair question. And here's the thing, because I had been writing a screenplay in response to a louder screenplay I'd written before with too many characters and too much dialogue, Black Star was a screenplay with arguably too little dialogue. A lot of the screenplay is just text, a lot of it. So I may have actually added dialogue in this case with the comic book, which is totally against what I would have suspected too, right? You got to trim the dialogue in most cases where you're trying to make things simpler for a medium that's more visual. However, I learned things from the screenplay that I tried to apply to the comic book script. I needed people to know how North was feeling on a pretty consistent basis. And it was not easy to convey that with her just typing into her forearm tablet, which is what she'd been doing in the screenplay. I needed her to talk to someone. So in this version of the story, I gave her a companion that's pretty much like Siri. It's called Guardian. And Guardian answers her questions, gives her statistics, gives her weather reports. And it's pretty much a sounding board so that the audience or the viewer, reader in this case, can infer what North is thinking and how she's feeling at any given moment. So there's more dialogue in this, even though she's not necessarily talking to people more. She's talking in general more. And in terms of just other ways I had to format it to be more of a comic booky thing, I had Ariel's help before I even knew I needed it. And Ariel's heard this a million times, but I'll say it a million times more because it is so valuable to me. Her designs of the characters involved spins on the technology that I proposed in the story that I hadn't thought of before. So the augmented reality portion of the story is entirely an invention of Ariel. The goggles that North and Parrish have in order to interact with their computer system is something that lends itself to large-scale visuals that weren't possible in my screenplay, where again, someone was just typing into a tablet, which I'm going to change in the next draft of the screenplay.
There you go.
Yeah, Ariel was absolutely fundamental in making sure that this story could be told better from the very jump.
Ariel, I got to commend you on this. Something you just illustrated. Fierce heroines, inspiring female characters of pop culture. Hey, that sounds like a great idea for a book. What was that like to work on that for you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that was the project that I had worked previous to Black Star. And I think that project actually helped me work a bit faster because it required a lot of illustrations in a short amount of time. And so I sort of had to truncate my coloring style. And I think that book probably wound up influencing the coloring style in Black Star, just because I learned so many tips and tricks on how to make an image look cool and finished in less time than normal. And in comics, and actually Black Star, I normally don't color my own sequentials, my own comic pages. Normally in comics, it can get a bit like of a pipeline process in that sometimes there's like a penciler, inker,
right,
and a colorist. But for Black Star, it was the first time that I was able to do my own colors. And it was a bit of a learning curve because its colors itself are its own like visual language or form of visual storytelling on top of the lines. It's like immediately after you finish 169 pages of inks, you have to then color 169 pages. Yeah, so I would say Fierce Heroines was really great in helping me nail down the coloring style for Black Star. So that was really good.
Yeah, colors, you don't realize it, but there's different shades of color. What color do you pick? And then
or like when it's daytime and when it's nighttime, how does that look? It's a lot to think about that Black Star really made me confront, and I'm really grateful that I had the chance to experiment with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the sunlight and there's shadows. How does the shadow look? Where is it hitting the character? I mean, it's all those things you got to decide. It's really amazing.
Totally. How does a character look underwater?
Yeah, exactly.
Eric put me through so many, or oh my god, how does a character look next to a volcano? Like all of that, like yeah, so many different forms of lighting that was interesting to play with.
You did great.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. What's up for both of you? Eric, we'll start with you. What are you working on now?
Oh man, what am I not working on? So many projects I have to get done. So I am currently in a screenwriting fellowship with NBC.
Very nice.
Thanks, thank you. So I just wrote a couple of television pilots for that fellowship. One is a sci-fi thriller about a woman who can create multiple realities when she's faced with difficult decisions.
Ooh,
The
like that.
other, thank you. I hope other people feel the same way once it's out there. Another drama that I'm working on is an LGBT drama about a man who used to be a conversion therapy counselor, and he works now for an LGBT community center to try to right the wrongs of his past. So those are scripts that have been challenging, and I also intend to rewrite Black Star for maybe the 5th time. So it's all just a never-ending battle. But that's been a joy too, just writing so much. I think I've been fortunate in that I've been able to have a career writing the last 4 years. I just stopped working with a group called Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. They are like an immersive experience, like arts and entertainment museum exhibit group that puts up different exhibits in different cities throughout the country.
Wow.
And I did some writing for them too. So it's been just more writing than I've ever done in my entire life, including the Black Star comic book. So I'm going to try to keep that going.
Yeah, and I got to credit you because I know you want to tell stories about people that are underrepresented, and I'm fully on board with that. And that's so important nowadays because I want to see it. I think a lot of people want to see it. We've had you saw the same people in almost the same situations over and over again. And after growing up like that, it's like, I think I need something new. And I've always gravitated towards the difference and the diversity anyway. And it's the last thing LeVar Burton says on my podcast before we go into the interview is about when I interviewed him for Star Trek First Contact, diversity and inclusion. That's the last thing he says. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was great. I interviewed him when Roots turned 20 years old. It was really something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was really something. It was great. He had written a book about a race war, believe it or not. And it was really interesting. And he actually saw Whoopi as one of the characters. So it was great.
Oh, right. Cool.
Okay. After Black Star, I jumped on a couple of other projects. So one of them is, I'm not sure if I can talk about it much yet, sure. But it was adapting a book. It was adapting an existing YA book into a graphic novel, which was a really interesting experiment because it's with a well-known existing character. So sort of jumping into that world and creating character designs and stuff that had to sort of fit into an existing world was a different experience than really getting to do whatever I wanted with Black Star. Yeah. And then I also did some spot illustrations for a really great YA rom-com that is about a girl who gets an internship at an animation studio, and she realizes that this director that she looked up to her whole life is actually a little bit of a misogynist, and so she kind of has to contend with all of that while still trying to pursue her dream of being an animator and a director. And it's this really cool book. Normally, YA books don't have illustrations, and this book just happened to be perfect since it's also about art and animation.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah, so that's called Drawn That Way, and that's coming out in September. I always shout it out just because I think it's such a fun project.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a few other things coming up. I'm also working on my own graphic novel pitch, but we'll see about that. But mostly, honestly, I'm just basking in the fact that Black Star has been this thing that Eric and I have been working on for 2 years is now released into the wild. That's
Yes.
really exciting, and I'm trying to like cherish and be present to that right now.
Absolutely. That's great. That's really cool. Guys, I really want to thank you. You're both obviously very talented. And Eric, good luck with those pilots. I would like to see both of those come to fruition. But it's a very strange world these days. Maybe Netflix and Amazon might be interested. You never know.
Never know. Maybe. Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thank you. And Ariel, best of luck with everything. You both sound like you're working on some neat stuff. And of course, there's Black Star. It's available now. So check it out. And would it be available like at your local comic book store too?
Yeah, at least it's in Forbidden Planet in New York.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know about
it
all
is
stores, but maybe. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Go and get that experience.
You guys got to.
Wow.
When things get better, you guys got to do a signing there.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. It'd be cool. But we're getting there. Well, maybe we're not there yet, but you never know.
So close. Yeah.
Yes, I hear you. All right. Black Star, check it out, folks. Thank you, Ariel and Eric, for being on the podcast. And thank you all for listening to Sci-Fi Talk. Take care. Yes, clap. Definitely clap.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chin Han, and I would kindly suggest you take a shot at listening to Sci-Fi Talk.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started. Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.